Hello, Dom. We got there.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you doing today?
I'm really excited. I thought we had a couple more minutes, so that's why I was like, "Oh no!"
You're perfectly fine. There was lots of questions coming in, so it gave me a good opportunity to answer them. Can we just share to the people watching where are you calling from right now?
I'm in the U.S., so I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Cool.
That is in the southeastern portion of the U.S. So
Yeah.
right now it's about 85 degrees outside. Wonderful weather for gardening. Not that great, wonderful weather for natural deodorant.
Hey, I'm with you there. Like, the compost doesn't stink, so it can't hide my odor.
I 100% agree. And I think that's something that I found so interesting because people were like, oh, composting, it's going to smell so bad. And
Hmm.
I found myself just like sometimes picking it up and being like, oh my goodness, this smells so good.
Yeah, I know, right? And I was just talking about the common barriers of composting, and people have this notion that it's too hard, it's stinky, it's messy. What was your experience? Did you have those preconceived ideas beforehand, like I did, like years ago? But what about yourself?
I sure did. I sure did. The first time that I actually heard about composting, I had a friend, and her home it was so beautiful, and she had a big piece of property. And so, we were sitting in her kitchen, and she was like, "Oh, my compost pile is way over there," and it was just like huge. And I was like, "I don't have any space for that." And so I thought you had to have a big piece of land and you would have to turn it with the pitchfork. And, that was one of the biggest barriers for me because I was like, I don't have enough space for that. Like, what am I going to do? And I really took the first composter that I made myself was like, kind of like think of an Oscar the Grouch trash can. Uh, and I just drilled some holes into the bottom and honestly, it works. It was just in the corner of my yard, and I was able to keep everything pretty compact. So my biggest thing is I didn't think I had enough space, but you don't have to have a lot of space to compost.
Exactly. I love that story. It's like you can start composting even if you don't want to invest in the system today. You can just dig a hole and put your food scraps in there. Granted, the risk is that pests might come up and dig it up, but it's like it is really possible to just start to give it a go and understand the process. But I really like that story, especially because it talks about space. Like people thinking you have to have all this space, it has to be away from your house, and not to toot the Sub Pod's horn, but the cool thing is like I can have this close to, like, right out the front of my back door, which is closer than the actual garbage bin. So it's like, well, why would I walk further to put the garbage in when I can just walk over here? So it just makes sense from that efficiency level. But what was your experience when you got Sub Pod? Like, was it different from that garbage bin? How so?
Absolutely, absolutely. So my original composter is, just hoping that it would turn into hot compost. And then I made another one, another DIY one that actually turned into lazy girl composting. We know a lot of things take about a year to decompose if you leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because I got scared because there was a giant slug, and I was like, I can't go back there. So when I got Subpod, I was so excited because one of the biggest things is you're composting underground, so you're much less likely to get pests. And I was like, that slug scared me off. Like, this is perfect. And so I learned so much about vermicomposting and worms and how resilient and wonderful they are. And I tell you, Peter, 1 year ago, if you told me that I'd be able to tell the difference between a baby worm, a pregnant worm, and just like a mature adult worm, I'd be like, you're silly. But I'm a
Right.
pregnant mama.
That is awesome. And that's so common as well to be like, oh, worms are a bit squirmish and slugs. But I think once we start to realize how beneficial some of these insects are and invertebrates for our garden, it's like, wait a second, like I could be buying heaps of money on fertilizers and doing all this work in my garden, or like you little guys can be doing it for me. The only
Right?
thing that's stopping me is my idea that you're all squirmish, but you're actually helpers. So I love seeing that transformation for people, because my girlfriend, she was squirmish as anything, but then as soon as she started to see the veggies grow, she's like, oh wow, you guys are actually pretty cool.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I didn't think I'd look at wasps differently. They still make me want to like,
Ah,
run, but I'm
yeah.
like, you serve a purpose, you serve a purpose, you serve a purpose.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I know some people watching this will be like, wasps, spiders, no, no, still can't see them part of the group. But that's yeah, I love getting into that conversation. I want to know like how composting impacts your daily life.
Well, that is a wonderful question. I'm so excited for it. Composting it keeps me more mindful for sure. Because you were talking just a few minutes ago about certain things being marketed as compostable, but you need to have the right materials for that. And I've noticed that, like, I'll throw something in the compost and then it won't break down, and I'm like, well, what's going on? You all lied to me
Mm-hmm.
like this. Um, so it definitely, my husband's actually in here. He commented it impacts our house every minute because it does. You know, when people come over, they'll be like, well, why do you have, why didn't you put that in the trash? Oh, because it can be composted. And I think it's just, life is very cyclical. When we think about, I feel a lot better and more empowered to eat healthier now that I compost. And I know that sounds silly, but you know, sometimes we may be deterred from getting fresh fruits and vegetables because we're like, what if it goes bad before I have a chance to eat it? And I'm like, honey, I can give it a second life if I throw it in this compost, and it's okay. I can do better for myself and the environment at the same time. And if there's a, you know, there's a time period where I go out to the compost and I check, you know, all of our food scraps, I'm like, we didn't really have any. I'm like, we were not eating healthy this week. Like,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
got to get back on it. I mean, there are no veggie scraps. We didn't eat vegetables all week.
That's sorry. Were you finished?
Yeah, yeah, that's how it
Uh,
impacts. We're very mindful now with what we consume.
that's a I love that's a great response about the like opening up your compost system and like actually looking like "Hey, how many veggies have I been eating, because it is a really good indicator and reflection of your diet. But I love that. I love that, the fact that you have people that come over and you educate them and tell them, hey, like this is compostable. And I want to know, did you anticipate to like get this much involved with composting and love it this much, and to have this much part of your life? Like, what did you
I,
anticipate that
Not at
at
all.
all?
I had no idea kind of how much it would impact me. You know, I have a neighbor right here, and she started juicing.
Mm.
She was like, you know, you know, I throw out a lot of vegetable scraps when I juice. And I said, honey, put them in the freezer when you're ready. Go ahead and toss them over the fence. I'll put them in the compost. And so it's really great just kind of seeing the impact that it can have. I did not expect any of this to happen. I did not expect, you know, to be talking about my food waste so enthusiastically, honestly.
Well,
I think you have such a big, you know, such a big to do with that. Because when I first started, it was kind of like, I felt like, oh man, I can't find the information that I need in a way that I can really process it. Because it's like greens to browns ratio. I'm like, but what are those? And, especially like, you know, flowers. Cut flowers can be
yeah.
compostable, but they can be considered a green or a brown depending when
Mm-hmm.
you put it into your bin. And so I had all these questions and I didn't feel like I had enough support. But the subpot community is so beautiful. And I think that encourages me to keep going and keep sharing, you know, just the benefits of composting. So thank you for helping me with this.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I think as humans, we often like to just complicate things, and I do that in my own life. When it really can be simplified if we just start looking at nature. Actually, in this case, because composting has happened for millions of years, and when you go into a forest, you go for a nice nature walk, you're not even recognizing that there's compost happening everywhere. And then you start to think about, why is that? Well, there's really four main principles going on here. There's air, there's water, there's temperature, and materials, the balance, like you're saying, browns and greens. So when you start to think about that and understand those principles, I think it's quite easy to just be like, oh, okay. And I don't know about you, but I feel like when you start to get a love for composting, it becomes more of an art.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I we will put certain things into our compost for, our worms and such. But some things, like when, my husband has a lot of plants. And so sometimes he'll have there's a giant bird of paradise leaf that I'm looking at that broke off.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
Before he put it in here, I'm like, look, when I turn it, it just doesn't do what it needs to do. So I was like, throw it off, just throw it into the grass. And he's like, what?
Hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, it's going to break down. Don't worry. It'll do its thing. We just need to leave it alone. And so I completely agree. Nature's been composting its entire time. And it helps me understand, oh, I can just leave this. And after my garden's done, sometimes I just throw what are they called? The plants that are kind of done for the season. I'll just throw them
Yeah.
against the fence and they'll do
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah, exactly. It blows my mind. Like in the States, how bagging up autumn leaves. We don't have as many here. I'm sure people do it here, but it's just like, what? Do you guys understand? If you just put it in a pile, it'll break down. Is it for a safety reason? Like, I don't know. What is it?
It's aesthetically pleasing for.
Oh,
We'll say where I am, they said that they're no longer going to be picking up plastic bags, so they're having to put it into paper bags. And Peter, that made me so happy because I was
that is
like,
great.
at least this bag also will break down eventually. So that's great, but no, it's really just aesthetically pleasing. Like people rake up their leaves, and I picked them up, and I was like, oh great, sprinkle them onto my bed,
Yeah.
fantastic. But somebody who lives nearby me is in here, and she's saying her HOA is a reason that she has to get her leaves and put them up. So the homeowners association, they just way.
That's a really good. Yeah, no, thank you for educating me on that, because that's a really good point. We did have somebody in a county somewhere, they couldn't get a compost system, and then they brought it up to their HOA, and they're like, hey, the sub pod doesn't smell and all that, and they're like, okay, we'll approve it. And so we know that it is really tricky in some of those communities to be able to get to do anything. So yeah, I feel you there. That's tricky.
It
Stop
is.
stop my landscaper just so I can keep all the leftovers.
I love that. I love that you do that.
No, what are you doing? I mean, we had a guy on last week, Green Thumb Daddy, who collects like a ton of no, that's the school next to me. Collects a ton of leaves like every week. Just gets piles and piles from everyone around him. It's just a great community service, and he's helping people around him. So it's just, yeah, I love hearing stories like that, because it's really one man's trash is another man's treasure.
100%. When I was filling up these beds, we went for a neighborhood walk, and I was just looking for sticks, because people set them on the side of the road for the city to come pick them up. And I don't know what they do. But I was like, I can use these.
I think, yeah, that's perfect, isn't it? Like, being more resourceful is another part of it as well. And when I think about it, it's like, well, our grandparents did all this. They didn't call it permaculture. They didn't call it we called it composting, but it was just so like everybody did it. It was just normal. It's like, well, what else are you going to do with your food scraps? Feed it to the animals, like throw it back into the soil. And so we've lost that. We're disconnected from that, because it's so easy for us to buy soil, to get food and all of that. But one cool thing that's happened out of COVID I've seen is that had this huge rush for food, and then people start to realize how difficult it is, how hard it is for those farmers out there to grow that food, and what it actually takes to build soil up. So that was, yeah. I don't know, how was it your experience during COVID and composting and gardening?
So that's what got everything started for me. 100% was COVID. It was like, okay, we need something to do. We need something to do. We can't do anything else. And so, honestly, I'm so thankful for it. I'm so thankful for it because, as you said, it's kind of reminded me the importance of just being grateful and thankful for all the people who, grow and harvest and transport our food, because there's nothing worse than kind of like going out to your garden and realizing like, oh no, I didn't check this and now the pests ate it. I'm struggling with some pill bugs in my garden right now, so we're doing the citrus trick.
Oh, right. So what are they doing? Are they attacking certain plants, like roots? Like,
yes, I prophesize that they have eaten some of my seedlings, and that's why my seeds haven't I haven't seen them sprout yet, but I caught them on my broccoli plant.
Hey,
Thought it was a rabbit, and I was like, oh, rabbit's coming at night. Okay, cool, 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 cool. And then I go over there literally right before this, and I'm like, what is happening?
I thought you guys were good.
So I've seen them in my compost, and I saw you're posting like they're really good decomposers. And so when I see them in here, I'm like, all right, do your thing, go ahead, hang out with the worms, that's fine. But in my garden beds, I was like, honey, no.
You guys stay over there. I've given you a home. Have you tried the diatomaceous earth trick?
I have not tried the diatomaceous earth for them just yet. I'm gonna see how this citrus trick works tonight,
Cool.
and I'm gonna keep everyone informed. So if you want to follow this
please
journey,
do.
Please.
I'm definitely going to follow that. How is the broccoli's health? Because I've seen like I've seen this happen before, but like my plant was like half dying. I'm like, all right, well then the insects are coming to finish it off. It wasn't like a vibrant, strong plant. Now, how was that broccoli's plant? Be honest.
It's very vibrant and strong still.
Oh wow! Well, that throws my theory out the window.
It's still going strong. And
okay.
The challenge that I've had was it's a cool weather crop, and as I said, it's about 85 degrees today. So I think I'm just trying to see if it'll grow and bolt, and I can save some seeds for next year.
Okay.
Moment, it looks good. It looks good.
So it's in the bolting phase.
Not yet. I'm just seeing
okay.
Because I'm like, it might not. I don't know. It might not taste that good because it's so hot outside. We'll see. Gardening.
Oh, that's great. I can't wait to see that experiment. Do you have any compost scraps next to you, Dom? Yes. Do you want to do a joint compost at the same time?
Yes. I'm so excited. Yes, absolutely.
Let's do this.
All right.
Thanks everybody for your questions so far. I'm just going to scroll up to see if I blame the garbage disposals. Yeah, I do too. Some people just blow them into the streets. Oh, fantastic. Oh, cool. So what you've got there. So you've got the larger sub pod, original, and I've got the mini here. And is that just 2 people in your household, Dom?
Yes, there's just the 2 of us in our home. As I said, sometimes we can take donation scraps. We're happy to do it. But yeah, it's just the 2 of us.
And that large one's good for you guys?
Yeah, it works just great for us. Yeah, there are no complaints here. I think since it is so large, we can fill one side and then the other.
It is nice, that feature. It is nice.
I'm just showing what I'm composting.
What have you got? Have you got an onion too?
We have some citrus peels. We have some cardboard, the grounds from this morning's coffee, and we had some plants that we chopped up. So they're going in there too, healthy plants, and some grapes that we did not eat fast enough and froze.
Little popsicle stick for the worms. I've got avocados. I found that to be one of the most favorite foods for worms. What have you found to be one of the most favorite foods for them?
Oh my goodness. I will say that I think that my worms love strawberries. They love them so much.
Oh, really?
Yes, I will put some in that I have an opportunity to eat fast enough. And I'll come back the next day and they're 100% gone. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what you went for first.
They're picky, strawberries. Oh. So I've got, for my carbon source, I've just got some leaves that I raked up.
Oh, wonderful.
Little apple leaves. I've actually got a little bit of fish bones in there. I've been fishing recently, and yeah. Do you ever compost? Do you eat meat and compost?
I do eat meat. I have not added it to my compost yet. I'm a little nervous to do that. I will.
Ooh.
I know you've said that it's possible. But
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can add small amounts in there. I mean, after about the 3rd month, the population of worms and microbes had built up enough to handle it. And Andrew, the inventor of SubPod, I remember at the time when he was telling people, he'd always say, meat on the bone. And that was his way of like, don't add chunks of meat on there. Like if it's a chicken bone, like if it's steak bone, if it's on the bone itself, then like Yeah, and you want to be eating all of your meat. You don't really want to be throwing it in there.
Right.
So it's perfectly fine. But what I would recommend is, like, first time you do it, add in small amount and lots of carbon, because what you're actually doing over time is you will breed up microbes that will eat meat and
Wow.
more. Yeah, so it's like a slow and steady process. And by the time, like, yeah, I've added like crazy amounts sometimes just to really push the system. And what's happened is that the system would heat up to about 100 Fahrenheit, 40 Celsius, and the worms would just evacuate, just like, whoo, we got to get out of here. So for about a week, I wouldn't feed it. It would cool down, and the worms would come back in there. So I wouldn't really recommend that. I think I had a few casualties in the process, but that's just to show, like, having the worms, allowing them to move in and out, allows you to compost these things that you couldn't normally. Oh, yay, that's a big worm. I've noticed that a lot of people in the States have been showing me bigger worms. Everything's bigger in the States.
I think
Supersize.
This is actually one of the smaller ones. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is a
Oh,
smaller.
really? Yeah. Oh, wow. So there's four. What worms do you have? Because there's four main types that people usually get.
These are red wiggers.
Oh, yep, they're great. I love a red wriggler.
What kind do you have, Peter?
I have I got them from a friend, and they're bigger than they're a red. I've got red wrigglers. I know I have that, but I think I also have an African night crawler as well, which is quite large because they're quite big. But I have seen in my soil there's a native compost worm, which is a blue type of worm, and so I have seen a few of them around too, which is good. In the States. There's not that many worms. There's not that many native worms in America because of the glacier period killed a lot of them off.
I love that that history. I think that's one of my favorite things about gardening and such is just kind of learning how certain things came to be. Like, why does this happen? And so that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh no, you're welcome. I love talking about worm facts because it's something that, like, in history, there's been some iconic figures like Charles Darwin spent the end of his life just researching about worms, doing these painstakingly weird experiments. And he said if he had another lifetime, he would just spend it on worms. So here's this guy who traveled all around the world, and at the end of his life was just in his house, just looking at worms for years. So it's like, wow, what's going on there? Like Charles Darwin, and then you have Aristotle, who called worms the intestines of the earth. Then you have like Cleopatra, who would punish people for harming worms. So it's like, well, what's going on? Like in history, worms again and again have been notorious for like being really profound creatures. So it's like, okay, there's more to this than that. So yeah, I think it's the worm is such a humble creature. You know, it doesn't really ask for much, doesn't do much. It doesn't do much for us that we can see. And below the surface, these little guys are just, they're doing incredible things and making really everything. Like everything we eat comes from soil. Right. And a lot of the soil comes from worms. So it's like, all right, well, our health, our well-being is somehow connected to worms.
Again, the gratitude is just monumental for so many of the insects and creatures that we find in our compost and our gardens. I just am always so thankful. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I want to ask you one last question, Dom, and this one is for people out there that haven't started composting for whatever reason. What would you say to people that are on the fence about it? Like, what would you say to people that are umming and ahhing, not sure if they should start composting?
I will say just go for it. And the reason I'd say that is because I remember talking to other people and they were like, yeah, I tried it and then this happened. So give an example. It was too wet and muddy. And then it's like, oh, okay, then just add more carbons, add some cardboard. Like, do you get Amazon shipments? Go ahead and put that in a shredder and go ahead and add that to your compost. At one point in time, mine was too dry. I think I talked to you. I was like, I have some ants. What's going on? And you're like, too dry. go ahead and wet it down, add some diatomaceous earth. But the thing about it, it's kind of it evens itself out. You just have to figure out what it needs. And so when something is wrong, it's just your compost saying, hey, I need something. Can you give me some more? Blah, blah, blah. So honestly, when you think about it, composting is so polite because it's just asking for what it needs.
That's a really cool way to look at it. We can learn a lot from it. It's if you need something, ask. And the universe may return on. May.
Oh, goodness. That part. Absolutely.
And for those watching out there, I think we have a little giveaway on your page coming up.
Yes, I am hosting a giveaway. The person who wins the giveaway will get a Sub Pot Grow Bundle, an apron, and a Hori Hori, which I don't have. So, honey, I can see how that is worth it by itself. But I'm so excited the giveaway will open tonight. We'll be sharing facts about composting, and honestly, everybody has an equal chance. Just go ahead and comment. I will have the post up probably within the next hour. So if you hear this, just go to my page. I will post it soon, and it'll be, a great opportunity to start your composting journey. So, yeah.
Fantastic. That's really cool. Thank you so much for joining us, Tom. Really appreciate it. We'll have to get you a Hori Hori. That's on my to-do list today.
Oh my goodness, so kind to me. Thank you so much. This is the first time that we've had an opportunity to kind of talk to one another, and it made my life. This made my day. I've been looking forward to it all day, and so I'm just excited for more people to kind of learn and ask and grow within composting. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been awesome. And thanks everybody for joining us today, asking your questions. We'll pop this, we'll save this so anybody can rewatch it or share it around with your friends. But happy composting, everybody out there. Enjoy International Compost Awareness Week. It's a mouthful, but it really is important. It's an important week for us to just spread awareness on composting. So take care, everybody. Keep feeding.